Nestled within the Sierra Nevada mountains of California, Yosemite National Park stands as a testament to nature's awe-inspiring beauty. With its towering granite cliffs, thundering waterfalls, and ancient sequoia groves, it draws millions of visitors each year seeking connection with the natural world. Yet beneath this serene facade lies an unpredictable wilderness that demands respect. The park's dramatic landscapes harbor hidden dangers that have claimed lives throughout its history. From treacherous cliff edges to sudden weather changes, Yosemite's pristine beauty coexists with potential peril. Each year, the park records several fatalities, with an average of 12 to 15 deaths annually in recent years. These tragic incidents serve as somber reminders of nature's power and unpredictability. Among these losses are the 5 stories featured in this narrative, each a heartbreaking tale of lives cut short amidst the splendor of one of America's most beloved national parks. The mist trail at Yosemite National Park was shrouded in its characteristic fine spray on a cool spring day in May 2019. Among the many hikers traversing this popular path was 56-year-old Shen Wong, a nature enthusiast with a deep appreciation for the park's majestic landscapes. Shen had always been drawn to the outdoors. Friends described her as meticulous and cautious, someone who researched her adventures thoroughly before embarking on them. Originally from China, she had built a life in California, embracing the state's natural wonders with particular fondness for Yosemite's dramatic scenery. That spring morning, Shen set out on the Mist Trail, one of Yosemite's signature hikes known for its proximity to vernal fall. The trail, while beautiful, presents hazards that vary with the seasons. Spring brings particular dangers as warming temperatures begin to melt winter accumulations of snow and ice. What made this day different was that a section of the trail had been closed due to hazardous conditions. Signs and barriers had been placed to warn hikers of the danger of falling rock and ice. Park officials had closed the trail beyond the footbridge, a common seasonal safety measure to protect visitors during the spring thaw when ice and rockfall incidents increased dramatically. Despite these warnings, Shen made the decision to continue past the closure points. Perhaps she underestimated the danger or believed her experience would see her safely through. Around 12:30 p.m., as she navigated the closed section of trail, the very danger that prompted the closure became tragically real. Without warning, a combination of rock and ice dislodged from the cliff face above. The falling debris struck Shen with tremendous force. Other hikers nearby heard the commotion and rushed to her aid, immediately calling emergency services. Park rangers and medical personnel responded swiftly, but the injuries Shen sustained were catastrophic. Despite desperate efforts to save her, Shen Wong was pronounced dead at the scene. The news sent ripples of shock through both the hiking community and park staff. Rangers, while accustomed to rescues, are never immune to the emotional toll of such incidents. In the days that followed, park officials reiterated their pleas for visitors to respect trail closures and warning signs. These are not arbitrary decisions, one ranger noted in a somber press briefing. They are implemented specifically to prevent tragedies like this. Shen's family received an outpouring of support from the hiking community. A small memorial of stones was briefly assembled near the trailhead, though later dispersed in keeping with park policies on maintaining the natural environment. Her story now serves as a poignant reminder to all who visit Yosemite of the importance of heeding warnings and respecting the unpredictable power of nature. The Mist Trail continues to draw thousands of hikers each year, each now walking in the shadow of a cautionary tale about the fine line between adventure and peril in the wilderness. On the early morning of August 14, 2015, in one tent, Dragon Kim and Justin Lee, both 14-year-old boys from Orange County, California, slept soundly. The two friends, close since middle school, had been looking forward to this camping trip for months. Dragon was known among friends and family for his bright enthusiasm and natural leadership skills. A gifted musician who played water polo, he had recently started the Dragon Kim Foundation, aimed at helping less fortunate youth. Justin, equally talented, shared Dragon's passion for music and sports. Both boys were students at Orange County School of the Arts, where they did well in school and added much to school life. The boys had arrived at Yosemite with Dragon's parents the day before, setting up their tent under the tall black oak trees that fill the campground. The Kim family had been coming to Yosemite for years, showing Dragon its wonders from an early age. This trip was special, as Dragon had been allowed to bring his best friend along to share in the fun. As the boys went to their tent that night, the campground was peaceful. Other campers later recalled the perfect weather, a mild summer night with a light breeze moving through the trees. Dragon's parents slept in a tent nearby, the family having spent the evening making s'mores and planning the next day's hike. At about 4:30 a.m., as most campers were still deep in sleep, a sound like thunder broke the silence. A massive 50-foot pine tree, about 3 feet thick, suddenly broke at its base and came crashing down. The tree fell directly onto the tent where Dragon and Justin slept. The impact was fast and total. Nearby campers, woken by the loud crash, ran to help. Among them were Dragon's parents, who frantically called out for their son and his friend while trying to move the huge trunk. Park rangers and emergency workers arrived within minutes, but the weight of the tree had caused deadly injuries. Even with quick work by first responders, both Dragon Kim and Justin Lee were pronounced dead at the scene. The sad accident stunned the campground and beyond. Looking into the incident found no clear reason why the tree fell. It had shown no outer signs of disease or weakness. Park officials noted that tree failures like this are random natural events, though very rare. Yosemite's tree experts regularly check and remove trees thought to be risky, but in this case, there had been no warning signs. After the tragedy, the boys' school community came together in grief and memory. Candle lighting events were held, and stories shared of 2 young lives filled with promise and joy. Dragon's parents, through deep grief, decided that their son's foundation would go on, becoming a living legacy to his spirit of giving. Today, the Dragon Kim Foundation gives awards to inspired teens who want to make a difference in their areas, making sure that Dragon's vision lives on. At Yosemite, though no formal memorial marks the spot in keeping with park rules, rangers who tell the story use it to remind visitors of nature's random power, even in the most normal of settings. The October sunset at Taft Point painted the granite cliffs of Yosemite in shades of gold and amber. Among the visitors taking in this amazing view on October 23, 2018, were Vishnu Vishwanath and Minakshi Murthy, a married couple whose love story had taken them from India to the United States, and finally to the edge of this grand cliff. Vishnu, 29, and Minakshi, 30, were not typical tourists. They were travel bloggers who shared their adventures under the name Holidays and Happily Ever Afters, posting their journeys with thousands of followers. Their Instagram feed showed their trips across the world, from the Grand Canyon to the canals of Venice, always featuring Minakshi's bright pink hair and the couple's clear joy in seeing the world together. Both were tech professionals who had studied in India before moving to the United States. Vishnu worked as a software engineer at Cisco Systems, while Minakshi, with her master's degree in computer science, had grown a passion for travel writing and photography. Their blog was filled with deep thoughts about life, travel, and making the most of every moment. Just months before their visit to Yosemite, Minakshi had posted about the dangers of taking photos in risky places. Next to a photo of herself sitting at the edge of the Grand Canyon, she wrote a sincere warning about how a lot of us, including yours truly, is a fan of daring attempts of standing at the edge of cliffs. But did you know that wind gusts can be deadly? At Taft Point, the couple set out to capture the stunning view from the popular lookout. The point, which stands at 7,500 feet above sea level, offers clear views of Yosemite Valley, El Capitan, and Yosemite Falls. It's also known for its steep vertical drop of 3,000 feet, with only a few rails at select spots. What exactly happened in their final moments remains unclear. No one has come forward who saw the actual fall. Another photographer at Taft Point that evening later reported seeing Minakshi's bright pink hair in the background of some of his photos, placing the couple there during the golden hour when the lighting would have been perfect for photography. The following day, visitors to Taft Point spotted camera gear on the lookout, but no sign of its owners. Park rangers were told, and a search and rescue effort began. On October 25, 2018, rangers found the bodies of Vishnu and Minakshi about 800 feet below the lookout point. Looking into the incident suggested the couple had fallen from an area without rails. Some thought they might have been trying to take a selfie, given their work as travel bloggers and the camera gear found at the scene. However, official reports could not clearly tell the exact details of their fall. The news of their deaths hit deeply within both the travel blogging community and the Indian American community. Friends and family from across the globe shared memories of the couple, describing them as travel-obsessed, always planning their next trip. In a touching twist, their final Instagram post showed Minakshi standing at the edge of a cliff, arms stretched out in joy of life. The caption read, "Live your life today, not tomorrow or day after." Their story serves as a bittersweet reminder of both the beauty that draws us to places like Yosemite and the respect such grand but dangerous places demand. At Taft Point, visitors still gather for the sunset, but many now step back from the edge, mindful of the thin line between seeing natural wonder and the stern laws of nature. The cool morning air of September 17, 2022, filled Kirk Olsen's lungs as he fixed his backpack straps one last time before starting on the Ostrander Lake Trail. At 61, Kirk was an expert hiker whose love for Yosemite had lasted decades, each visit deepening his tie to this wilderness that had become something of a spiritual home. Friends described Kirk as careful and skilled in the backcountry. A resident of Mariposa County, just outside the park, he had hiked most of Yosemite's trails many times. His comfort with the land led him to often hike alone, finding peace in the quiet time with nature that solo hiking offers. This September morning started like many others in Kirk's hiking life. He had told family members of his planned route, a day hike to Ostrander Lake, a beautiful alpine lake at 8,500 feet height, about 6.5 miles from the trailhead near Glacier Point Road. The hike was well within his skills, though hard enough with its 1,500-foot climb to need good physical shape. Kirk, fit and healthy despite his age, planned to return before dark. As was his habit, Kirk carried the basics: water, food, a map, compass, and warm clothing. His decades of experience had taught him the value of being ready, especially when hiking alone. What he could not have prepared for, however, were the events that would turn a normal hike into his final journey. When Kirk failed to return that evening, family members grew worried. By the next morning, worry was strong enough to prompt a call to park staff. Rangers quickly started search plans, focusing on the Ostrander Lake Trail and nearby areas. The search for Kirk Olsen became one of the largest efforts in recent park history. Rangers, search and rescue teams, dogs, and later helicopters with heat sensors covered the rough land. Days stretched into a week as teams carefully searched the area, working outward from his last known spot at the trailhead. What made the search very hard was the lack of clues. No personal items were found along the trail, no signs of trouble were reported by other hikers, and no evidence pointed to what might have happened to the skilled outdoorsman. It was as if Kirk had simply faded into the vast wilderness that he loved. As the search entered its second week, hope began to fade. The nights were growing colder as fall came to the high country, and survival chances got smaller with each passing day. While the formal search was reduced after 12 days, rangers kept looking into leads and studying satellite images for any sign of Kirk. On October 15th, nearly a month after he went missing, a hiker reported finding human remains in a remote gully about 2 miles off the main trail to Ostrander Lake. The spot was in an area that had been searched before, but was so densely forested and rough that it had proved nearly impossible to fully cover on foot. DNA testing later confirmed the remains were those of Kirk Olsen. The exact details of Kirk's death remain unclear. Rangers thought that he might have taken a wrong turn or gone off-trail to explore, perhaps becoming lost or having a medical problem in a place where help was hours away. Whatever happened, the wilderness he loved had claimed him in his final moments. Afterward, Kirk's family set up a memorial fund supporting wilderness education and search and rescue work in Yosemite. His story has become part of the Ranger safety talks at the Ostrander Lake Trailhead, a gentle reminder that even the most skilled hikers face the random nature of wilderness. Among those who knew him, Kirk is remembered not for his final mystery hike, but for his lifetime of respect for the natural world. As one friend put it during a memorial service, Kirk didn't just visit the wilderness, he belonged to it. In the end, perhaps it was fitting that it was where he stayed. Morning of September 4, 2023, dawned clear and bright over Yosemite Valley. Among the early risers getting ready for adventure were Grace Rolof and her father, setting out on what was to be the high point of their father-daughter hiking trip, climbing Half Dome, the famous granite rock that stands as Yosemite's most known feature. At 20 years old, Grace was a lively young woman with her life ahead of her. A junior at California Polytechnic State University, she was studying biology with dreams of a career in protecting the environment. Friends described her as full of joy, athletic, and loving the outdoors. Growing up in San Luis Obispo, California, she had grown a deep love for nature from an early age, often joining her father on hiking trips across the state's varied landscapes. The Half Dome hike had been on their wish list for years. Rising nearly 5,000 feet above Yosemite Valley, the trail to its top is seen as one of the park's hardest day hikes, covering about 16 miles round trip with a climb of over 4,800 feet. The most feared section is the final 400 feet, where hikers must climb the dome's steep eastern face using a system of metal cables as hand supports. Grace and her father had planned carefully for this adventure, getting the needed permits, training on steep hikes near their home, and studying the route. They set out before dawn, making steady progress up the trail through Little Yosemite Valley. By mid-morning, they had reached the base of the cables, where they stopped to put on gloves and gather their courage for the final push to the top. The climb went well. Grace, athletic and sure-footed, handled the cables with ease. At the summit, father and daughter hugged, celebrating their success against the backdrop of Yosemite's wide-open views. Photos taken by fellow hikers show Grace smiling with pride, arms raised in victory against the vast blue sky. After spending time at the top, taking photos and enjoying lunch, they began their descent around 12:30 p.m. The cable section, hard during the climb up, becomes even more tricky during descent when hikers must face outward toward the dizzying drop while working their way down the steep slope. Grace began going down first, her father following close behind. About halfway down the cable section, just after 1 p.m., the worst happened. Maybe a brief loss of focus, a slip on the smooth granite, or a sudden wind gust, whatever caused it, Grace lost her footing. Her father, only feet away, watched in horror as she fell from the cables. Despite her urgent attempt to get her grip back, Grace fell down the steep face of Half Dome. Nearby hikers, seeing the accident, quickly called for help using satellite phones and emergency devices. Park rangers, including a team that happened to be near the base of Half Dome that day, responded very quickly. A helicopter was sent from the valley floor, but even before it arrived, rangers had reached Grace. Despite their fast medical help and the helicopter rescue that followed, her injuries were too great. Grace Rolof was pronounced dead later that afternoon. The event deeply affected the community of hikers on the trail that day, many of whom had shared friendly greetings with Grace and her father earlier. One hiker later described how the mountain went silent after the accident, as people took in what had happened. In the days that followed, Grace's university community gathered around her family. A memorial service on campus drew hundreds, celebrating a life marked by adventure, academic promise, and giving spirit. Her biology department created a scholarship in her name for students studying environmental work. At Yosemite, rangers use Grace's story during safety talks for Half Dome hikers, stressing the need to keep 3 points of contact with the cables at all times. Though her journey ended too soon, Grace's spirit lives on in the wild places she loved, a reminder of both the beauty and risk found in our most grand natural places.